Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to my reaction video for UFC Fight Night, Erin Blanchfield versus Maycee Barber. Now listen, the UFC could have scheduled Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier in a three-way fight, with Charles Oliveira as the special guest referee and Islam Makhachev cage side as the only judge, and still, this card would have bombed. And it's not because of the performances on the card. It's not because of the names on the card. Not because of, every fight on this card's a bum. The card's cursed. The card is cursed. The date is cursed. If you don't know, I'm going to quickly take you through everything that happened in the build-up to this card. And yeah, it's cursed. Now, I have to read it from the screen just because my mind has a mind of its own. I have the attention span of a goldfish thinking of another goldfish. Because I would think of something important, my mind would go somewhere else, and I would be like, what was I thinking about? And then my mind would be like, great question. So, the card started off. Billy Ray Goff was scheduled to fight Ko Chiasson, and Ko pulled out. And then Ramiz Brahimaj was scheduled to fight Oban Elliott. And then Elliott pulled out. And then the UFC thought, okay, well, Billy Ray Goff is a welterweight, Ramiz is a welterweight, so let's just have them fight one another. And then that happened. And then the main event is something that I would touch on later. But then preliminaries. All right, let me just quickly take you through the prelims. So Andreas Gustafsson was scheduled to fight Trevin Giles. Giles pulls out. So now they reschedule Andreas Gustafsson versus Jeremiah Wells. And the fight's cancelled. Completely. Andreas Gustafsson doesn't see this fight night card. Then they have Bolaji Oki taking on Markel Medeiros. And would have been an insane fight, seeing that Oki was at the time 9-2. Medeiros was 10-1. Medeiros pulls out. And they find Oki's opponent on Tuesday of the week leading up to the fight. And then obviously what happened in the main. So this date is cursed. If you were born on the 31st of May, I would advise you to look for someone. Now usually they have and they wear strange clothes. Typically it's a woman. And they have a crystal ball. Bet you that woman would tell you, she would be able to entertain you for a week with what happened on this day. Because clearly, if ever you have something scheduled, like a date with someone, you don't even have to cancel it. It would just cancel itself. Or you would get to the date and someone completely different would show up. So just avoid the 31st of May. Avoid it completely. But we started off in the prelims. Right, and we only had 4 fights on the prelims. We had no early prelims just because of everything that I just told you. And we started off the prelims with Ryan dos Santos versus Alice. Yeah, I struggle with the surname because you think it's Adeline. It's Adeleon, okay? And in this fight, we saw Ryan land, I'd say the harder punches, but we saw Alice with more volume. Especially at range, Alice was just piecing up Rayon, getting the better of exchanges, using her jab to great effect. If you're a fan of mixed martial arts, emphasis on the mixed, you would have hated this fight. Because in the 15 minutes, we saw 2 takedowns, and I think we saw 3 kicks. It was pure boxing from both Alice and Rayon. And Rayon, as I said, landed the harder punches, but Alice just had more volume at range. She was just dictating way better. Also landed good shots. Both women stood on their punches, which is something you love to see. You love to see punching and throwing with intent and not just throwing it because you want to score good. And overall, at the end of the fight, Alice ended up winning by a unanimous decision. But I thought it was a good fight. I enjoyed it. And I thought this is a good way to start, this fight night card. Knowing what I know, this was a good way to start it. But then we went on to the second fight, Bolaji Oki versus Michael Aswell. Now, Bolaji is insane. And I think he deserves credit for his win. But I just quickly want to go over Michael as well. So Michael got phoned on Tuesday, and they asked him, "Listen, would you take this fight?" With a 9-2 prospect of the UFC. Now I imagine the phone call went like, "Listen, Michael, would you take this fight?" And Michael's like, "Yeah, oh, sure, okay, sure, I'll take it." And then Hunter or Sean just said, "Okay, listen, don't Google him, don't do any type of prep, just rock up. It's just some guy from Belgium, and he's a young prospect." And then Michael arrived and he thought, "Listen, what is this?" Because Bolaji Oki is built like something in the 20s with a serum attached to it. A massive, massive specimen for lightweight. Black, so you know he has insane genetics and just a freak of nature. And Michael as well, by the way, is he's a featherweight. Okay, so he isn't even a lightweight. And Michael accepted the fight with this Belgian thing called Bolaji Oki. And Michael stood his own, ended up winning a round. He lost via unanimous decision 29-28, but unanimously, he won a round. He was insane. And Oki threw with the intent of sending Michael to his ancestors. And Michael just gunned it out. And he landed his own shots. He looked good. That's why he actually won a round. It was an insane fight. Credit to Oki for getting the victory. But, I mean, he was a massive favorite. I think he was a minus 660 favorite going into that fight. End of the first round, he was a minus 160 favorite. So, first round ended, and odds makers thought, we might have messed up here. Just an insane performance by Michael as well. A good performance by Bolaji Oki. But keep in mind, Oki was, conditioned. He was ready. He was fight ready. Even though the opponent changed and that makes it difficult. Michael as well was basically just chilling and, I'll take it. Me, Michael, the featherweight, will take on that thing that could probably fight at welterweight easily. Yeah, I would go fight him. Insane guts from Michael as well. Insane performance by Oki. And then we went on to the third fight on the prelims, the second last fight on the prelims. We saw Kurt Holloway versus Jordan Levitt. And listen, I think Levitt took a massive page out of Alexander Hernandez's playbook, because when we saw Kurt Holloway versus Alexander Hernandez earlier this year, I remember my predictions for that fight was I thought Kurt had a genuine chance. Just because he's so tough, he's so durable. Even though Alexander is a much better striker, I thought Kurt Holloway, just through grittiness, through his toughness and durability, could win that fight. And then in the third round, it looked dire for Alexander Hernandez, and he just took Kurt down and basically ended up winning the round just via takedown and just laying on top of Kurt Holloway, won the round, won the fight, and that's how I somewhat predicted it. And Jordan Levitt saw that and said, "You know what, I'm just going to go straight for it. Now, I'm not going to stand and try and fight with this guy for 3 rounds. Round started, Jordan Levitt immediately shot for the takedown, got the takedown, and basically in the second minute of the fight, won via an anaconda choke. An insane performance by Jordan Levitt, insane grappling, really good transitions, and Kurt Holloway, it is one of his flaws that when he's on bottom, he's comfortable on bottom because he also has good jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't necessarily scramble to stand up. I think Jordan Levitt game planned perfectly for this. An insane performance, an insane choke. He choked Kurt Holloway out, didn't even tap, which is why I love Kurt Holloway, because he will go out on his shield and on a stretcher if it needs be. And yeah, good fight. Insane performance by Jordan Levitt. I mean, a minute and 40 seconds into the fight and it was over. And then we went on to the main event, where we saw Jafel Filo versus Alan Nascimento. And Nascimento missed weight. So Nascimento came in at flyweight. I think the limit's 126. He came in at either 127 or 127 and a half. And immediately I thought Nascimento's winning this fight. because of the weight advantage. Now, even though it is slight as you possibly can get, considering an advantage, it's still an advantage. It basically meant that heading into this fight, Allen had to not put himself through as much pain and torture as Philo had to. That's basically all it means. And first round started, Philo got the better of Nascimento, basically just ended up taking him down, controlling him on the ground. A lot of submission threats with regards to Philo. And then the second round started and kind of the same happened. But then Philo got too high when he had it back and he just slid off. Nascimento ended up dominating that round, or basically just winning that round, but securing it. And then going into the third round, saw Philo, and yeah, his corner told him, avoid wrestling, avoid grappling, let's just try and strike with this guy. He is bigger, he is technical, he's good, he has good grappling, he has good jiu-jitsu. And yeah, Nascimento saw his opportunity, just went for a takedown, got it, and once again just controlled Philo on the ground, ended up winning via unanimous decision, 29-28. So yeah, it was a good fight. With regards to grappling, I really enjoyed it. With regards to both men and how good their grappling is, and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you saw some things where I saw a straight armbar, a straight armbar attempt, which I've never seen in my life, by Nascimento, and Philo obviously trying to go for a rear naked choke, all of the ways that he tries to get it. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed the main event of the prelims. And then we moved on to the main card. And the first fight on the main card was Zachary Reese versus Dusko Todorovic. Now, with regards to my predictions, I only predict the main card because it takes time. And right now, doing everything myself. So yeah, Zachary Reese versus Dusko Todorovic. And I thought Zachary would win via knockout. I just thought that Dusko Todorovic, even though he is predominantly a grappler, a lot of times he would actually stand and strike with his opponent to his own detriment. I thought the same would happen against Zachary Reese. And I don't think Zachary Reese is a necessarily good person to try and strike with if you're not a sophisticated striker. Because he has a lot of power. Where he knocked out Julian Marquez, I mean, the damage that he put on Medina. So I thought to Dusko's own detriment, he would try and strike with Zachary Reese. But then in the first round, Dusko grappled and he basically had a hold of Zachary Reese's neck for 2.5 minutes, for the half of the round. Where every time I kind of squinted because obviously I wanted Zachary to win because I predicted Zachary to win. And I kind of squinted because I thought, oh, he's in trouble. And then every time Zachary Reese came out fine. And there was a moment in the first round where Zachary Reese was on bottom. And basically, in his previous fight, we saw him against Azamat Bakoyev. We saw him get knocked out because he was on bottom. And he basically tried to strike his opponent on bottom. He sliced him with elbows. And then Azamat just caught him and knocked him out. So I was stressing because it felt like the same thing was happening with Dusko. Where Zachary Reese was on bottom, and instead of trying to get off of your back, he was just basically starting to throw, and then all of a sudden Dusko lands hammer fist, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's gonna happen again. But then Zachary Reese recovered, got to his feet, second round somewhat dominated, third round somewhat dominated, both men out on their feet just because of that heavy grappling exchange we had in the first round. I thought it was exciting. I just thought that Zachary Reese, his striking, I thought would probably be more evolved. Game planning for Dusko. I mean, his straight right or straight left, whether he stood southpaw or orthodox, both would have worked. But instead, he wanted to enter with a jab every single time. And as soon as he closes, Dusko just moves forward, closes the distance, and tries to grapple and clinch. So, I mean, straight right, straight left, both of them was on the whole time. But I mean, both men were so exhausted. And yeah, Zachary Reese ended up winning. I said he was going to win via KO. He ended up winning via unanimous decision. So, prevalent on this main card, I got the right answers. I just didn't get the right way to the answer. Didn't use the correct method. And second fight, we saw Ketlin Vieira versus Maycee Chiasson. Now, I didn't predict this fight just due to the fact that it came and got moved from the prelims to the main card relatively, late within the week. So already by that time, I had my predictions out. And yeah, Caitlin Vieira also came in overweight. She missed weight by, I think it was a lot. I think it was it 10 pounds? It was an ungodly amount of weight. And Maycee Chiasson took the fight still. And whenever this happens, whenever you have two people that are relatively equal with regards to their skill set, pick the one that missed weight. If you are a betting man or woman, pick the one that missed weight, because guarantee you 80 to 85% of the time they will win the fight. And Caitlin Vieira looked really good, but I mean, it does it really count? Could they give you and warrant you a win on your record if you missed what's necessary to actually be able to participate in the fight? Listen, weight is a massive problem within the UFC right now, and this card somewhat emphasized the big problem with weight inside the UFC, with weight classes, with weight cuts. Yeah, but anyway, Caitlin Vieira looked really good in terms of stand up. She looked better than Maycee. Maycee just basically circled a lot, tired herself out. It is very difficult to circle the way that Maycee did constantly for 15 minutes. And we saw with regards to grappling exchanges, Caitlin Vieira, first and second round, when she was on top, she just basically controlled Maycee, and she was really good. In the third round, we saw Caitlin Vieira be on top, and then Maycee opened her up with an elbow, and Maycee then started pressing the pace and putting it on Caitlin Vieira. It was just a little too late. And Maycee Chiasson, we could see by the last 10 seconds of the fight, she was animated because, she knew that this didn't go the way that she'd expect at all. Visibly frustrated, ended up screaming at Caitlin Vieira. They threw, and yeah, Caitlin Vieira won via unanimous decision. So whenever someone misses weight, bet on them to win a fight, because majority of the time they will win said fight. But then we moved on to the next fight, Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopes. Now I said Dustin Jacoby via knockout, and I said third round. I thought it would go in somewhat of a similar fashion than his fight did with Vitor Petrino. I thought that we will have the same outcome. And I thought this is a tough fight for Bruno Lopes, because we saw Bruno Lopes in his Contender Series fight, where his opponent was so gassed that Bruno ended up throwing a normal body shot and won via TKO. We saw it in his debut inside of the UFC, and he was constantly moving forward, and his opponent was moving backwards. I can't remember his name now, Bruno Lopes' opponent's name, but I mean, he is insane. And yeah, it was everything that I predicted, because Bruno wasn't gonna be able to just walk forward and put Dustin Jacoby under pressure, because Dustin Jacoby is a really sophisticated kickboxer. He's comfortable fighting off of the front and back foot. It doesn't matter. So I thought that this would be problematic. I also thought that Dustin Jacoby had better wrestling defense than every opponent Bruno Lopes has faced thus far. And yeah, we saw it in the first round. Dustin Jacoby looked insane. Ended up dropping Bruno Lopes with a jab, a stiff jab. Bruno goes down, and Dustin Jacoby basically just pressed forward, and yeah, he knocked him out. Knocked him out in the first round. An insane performance by Dustin Jacoby. And yeah, it's not the first Brazilian prospect. Listen, if you are a Brazilian prospect looking to climb the rankings and make a name for yourself inside the UFC, avoid Dustin Jacoby, because he knocked out Vitor Petrino, he knocked out Bruno Lopes. Just avoid him. You don't have to go through him. You don't have to deal with that. Avoid him at all costs. And then we saw the main event. Initially, it would have been the co-main event, but it was the main event, and at the time we didn't know it. Matthias Gamrot versus Tdorovic Klein. Now, I predicted Gamrot would win via unanimous decision because of Matthias Gamrot, because he is probably either the best or second or third best wrestler in the division. And this was really something that, once I saw it, it somewhat resonated with me when they spoke to Matthias Gamrot. They said, listen, Ludovic Klein has insane wrestling defense. He has a 95% accuracy with regards to his wrestling defense, his takedown defense. And Matthias Gamrot said, yeah, but who did he fight? And basically just reassuring that whoever Ludovic Klein fought isn't on Gamrot's level. And it was on full display. And it was weird seeing Ludovic's game plan where he basically circled a lot, thought he was going to keep his distance from Matthias Gamrot, and that just did not work. You cannot have Matthias Gamrot fight on the front foot, because guarantee he'll take you down. Guarantee he will take you down. And he has somewhat good striking as well. So it's not just wrestling that you have to look out for. He has those blitzes where he blitzes and he blitzes good. He isn't in a lot of danger when he blitzes. And his overhand, his check right, is with its good punches, good shots. So, yeah, Ludovic found out a little too late that his game plan was just horrible. Because when he fought in the third round of that fight, we saw Ludovic actually move forward. Had way more success because then he somewhat took the same approach that Dustin Hooker took when he fought Matthias Gamrot. Fight on the front foot, have Gamrot fight off the back foot. It's way more difficult for a wrestler to shoot off of his back foot rather than his front foot. And yeah, in the third round, Ludovic had some success because he was fighting on the front foot, because he was dictating range, dictating the pace, and dictating the exchanges. But if you have Gamrot dictate all of those things, he will beat you. And then post-fight interview, we saw Matthias Gamrot. DC asked him, who do you want to fight? Who can you see yourself fight next? And who do you want to fight next? And he gave 3 names. He said Dan Hooker in the rematch, Paddy Pimblett. He said Paddy is a dumb European, which is odd because Poland is also, and he said Benoit Saint-Denis. So, yeah, let me know in the comment section, which one would you want to see Matthias Gamrot fight next? Benoit Saint-Denis, the rematch with Hooker, or Paddy Pimblett? And listen, Matthias Gamrot is still part of the top lightweights in the world. I think he's genuinely still that good. I think his loss to Hooker, it could have gone either way. And listen, he has the wrestling. His cardio is questionable because even in the third round, it looked like he was somewhat exhausted looking at the clock in like the third minute or second minute of the third round. That would be a problem for Gamrot if he had to fight 5 rounds. Now, he has fought 5 rounds before, but he just doesn't look the same when he fights 5 rounds compared to 3. 3 rounds, I'd say he's borderline impossible to beat. 5 rounds, round 3, 4, and 5, Gamrot could be in trouble. But then after the Gamrot fight, after the interview, DC went to go sit on the broadcast table. Not on the table, we don't have DC on tables. And they went to the promo of Maycee Barber versus Erin Blanchfield. And as soon as the promo ended, no one walked out. And immediately I thought, botched. The production team made a mistake. It's fine. And then they went over to the broadcast panel. And I thought, yeah, this is probably not good at all. And then they said, okay, neither woman has started their walk, so we'll let you know. And then they take a break, and then all of a sudden they come back. The fight is cancelled. Erin Blanchfield was ready, but Maycee Barber had difficulties and basically just had difficulties, couldn't fight. Medical implications and whatever. And yeah, I have a strong opinion on this, which is probably because afterwards, Megan O'Leary interviewed Erin Blanchfield. Wanted to hear her opinion, her take on everything that happened. And then Erin basically said that, it's extremely unprofessional. And, well, not extremely, but it's unprofessional, and she won't entertain a fight with Maycee Barber ever again. And then they went back to the commentary panel, and Laura Sanko was somewhat, I wouldn't say, I don't really know, but then Laura said, yeah, but Erin said it was unprofessional, but it's not like it was in Maycee's control. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, But wasn't it? Like, isn't the ownership on Maycee Barber to make weight? To make weight, and find the most optimal way to make weight, because in order to fight, you have to be at that weight. And we saw Maycee Barber get a job done with regards to her aesthetic appearance. And she was basically, she missed weight by the amount that would have, the impact that it would have had. And knowing that you're a UFC fighter, that is your profession, that's the way you make money. And being in that weight class is probably the most important thing, because that dictates whether you actually do fight or not, which is your profession, by the way. Having a job done on oneself, adding to your weight when you already have difficulty making weight, and then showing the world that you are eating tacos while you should be cutting weight, knowing that you have this fight and been preparing for this fight for about 5 months. Do you know what, you understand what I'm getting at? It obviously sucks, and they said that Maycee had seizures. Listen, if that is the case, then it is horrible. Okay, nobody wishes that upon anyone, and speedy recovery to Maycee Barber. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a bad look, and they thought, okay, yeah, this looks horrible, and to be able to somewhat preserve Maycee's the status within the UFC, they made it more dire than it was. Now I know she actually went to the hospital, and she actually had, they checked up on her. So the seizure thing could have genuinely happened. And once again, if that is the case, it's horrible. Speedy recovery to Maycee Barber. But we're talking about Maycee Barber, who has also had problems, health problems in the past, with regards to, a lot of things. So either she has to move up to bantamweight, which will be tough, because women at bantamweight are monsters, respectfully. I just call them beautiful monsters. They are, well, this is gonna sound, they are enormous, all right? Comparing a bantamweight woman to a featherweight woman, rather flyweight woman, it is a massive difference. They hit way harder, they are way stronger, and yeah, it is like, you can't take the same approach and say, well, it's like comparing a men's flyweight with a men's bantamweight, because with men, power just translates way better. But for women, weight it's way more of an influence. So for men, it would be comparing a 125 with a 145er. I'd say that difference is basically the same difference between a flyweight woman fighter and a bantamweight woman fighter. Now, either Maycee could retire, which would suck, it would suck, or she has to move up to bantamweight. But she cannot fight at flyweight because of the health ramifications of this. And you cannot fault Erin Blanchfield for saying what she said, preparing for this fight, literally standing in the dressing room, hands wrapped, ready to scrap, and Hunter Campbell comes in and says, listen, fight's off. It has to be devastating. And remember, Erin Blanchfield, if she ended up beating Maycee Barber in impressive fashion, she could have been a rightful number one contender to face Valentina Shevchenko. And now probably it's either going to be Zhang Weili or Natalia Silva. But if Erin had the opportunity to fight Maycee Barber, genuinely fight her, beat her convincingly, she could have leapfrogged Natalia Silva and fight Valentina Shevchenko. But now she didn't get that opportunity. And an opportunity was taken away from her. So it sucks for both parties, but Erin Blanchfield definitely got the rougher end of this. You know, taking into account Maycee and everything she's going through. It's not Erin's fault. Erin just wants to fight the ranked people, wants to prove herself, and then this happens. And I'm you could see the side DC was leaning towards, and it was Erin Blanchfield's side, and yeah, I completely agree with them.